Come on, somebody come in. Hello, Nicola. Thank you for joining us. Tom's going to be baking bread here. He's making oatmeal molasses. Hello, Johnny Mac. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay.
Let him know what you're doing.
All right.
Hello, SD Angelo. Thank you for joining. Sorry. All right.
All right. In the bowl of my KitchenAid mixer, I've got 2 cups of whole wheat flour and a cup of all-purpose flour. I'm using Bob's Red Mill flours, but any good flour will work. King Arthur is also a good brand. And even Pillsbury and Gold Medal. I prefer Gold Medal to Pillsbury. Make good bread flours, all-purpose flours. You want something made from hard wheat that's got a fairly high protein content for good bread consistency. In the mixing bowl, I've got basically it's cooked oatmeal. Again, this is Bob's Red Mill extra thick rolled oats. And I cook it because these won't break down as easily as Quaker, old-fashioned, or instant. If you're using instant oatmeal, you don't need to cook it at all. You can just toss it in dry.
Sorry, Johnny Mac can't send any. He wants you to send him some bread.
In with the dry ingredients, I have a teaspoon of sea salt and a tablespoon of sea salt and a tablespoon of instant dry yeast. I try to not use the quick rising yeast because the more time it takes to rise, the better the flavor develops. And being in Vermont, it takes a long time to rise anyway, so that's a good thing. I'm going to add to my cooked oatmeal another cup and a half, 2 cups of water. I try to do about 3 cups total liquid and 5 or 6 cups of flour total. Of course, the flour you add depends on the consistency of the dough as you're mixing it, so it varies. And I'm going to turn on the mixer at, if you're using a KitchenAid, 2 is the speed you want for the dough hook. And come around here, Linda, if you want to get a better picture. And just mix in your wet ingredients. In this case, it's just water and oatmeal. And then I'm going to add a little oil and then some molasses. I do about 2 tablespoons of oil. And I'm going to do about a 1/4 cup of molasses. More or less. This isn't science.
Nicola wants to know, she said she bakes bread, what's the best way to store it once it's baked?
Freeze it.
Freeze it.
If you're not going to eat it within a day, definitely wrap it as tightly as you can and put it in the freezer. It'll keep for several weeks in the freezer, and when it thaws out, it's almost as good as the day you baked it.
Did you hear that well enough, Nicola?
And you certainly don't need to use a KitchenAid mixer to bake bread. I made it for many years doing it all by hand. It's just a whole lot easier to use the mixer. And I generally do a hand knead at the end, just so that I've got my hands in contact with the bread. I feel like I need to do a little bit of that.
Hi, Jake Corrado. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. I'm going to start adding flour, and I do that a 1/4 to a 1/3 of a cup at a time. There is a protective cover that goes on this mixer that keeps the flour in the bowl a little better, but I wanted you to be able to see what's going on, so I'm not using it today.
Don't hurt yourself.
I'll hurt the cup. I'm just working the flour around the edges into the dough. Help it get mixed a little quicker. As this process goes on, the gluten will form long elastic strings that will tend to pull the dough together, and you'll see it ball up around the dough hook and pull away from the sides of the bowl.
How long will you mix for?
Well, we mix until the dough is the right consistency, and you can tell because it will pull away from the bowl. It'll actually clean the sides of the bowl pretty well. And so we'll see as it progresses, it becomes pretty clear that the dough is ready. We'll keep adding a little more flour, but don't add too much because there's still a good bit down at the bottom, and you don't want to get too dry a dough. We may be at about the point where it's got enough flour.
It's pretty cool looking from this angle.
See how it's starting to pull away from the bowl, and the dough hook works its way in there, and you get the ball of dough working either side of the dough hook and eventually wrapping around the hook pretty well. Now, if you really want to get involved, you can, anytime now, you can stop this and turn it out onto a countertop or a kneading board and add some flour to it and knead it by hand. I'm going to go ahead and let the mixer finish it. Adding a little more flour because it's started sticking to the sides of the bowl again and kind of lost the ball. So add flour a quarter to a third cup at a time, no more than that.
Is this going to be more of a rustic style bread? Is that why you don't want to turn it out and knead it?
No, I'd say, whether you knead it by hand or do it in the mixer, it doesn't really matter. The mixer does exactly what you would do kneading the dough. It stretches the dough, and that forms the elastic gluten that gives the bread its texture. So this isn't going to be an especially rustic bread. If I were doing a more rustic bread, I would knead it for less time. I would turn it out now, give it a quick knead, and just let it rise. And that way you'll get a more rustic style with more irregular holes in the crumb and a lighter dough that will form a more chewy crust. This is going to be a light crust and very consistent crumb. that little spray of flour is why you want that guard on there most of the time. See that it's pretty much cleaned off the inside of that bowl. Coat the surface and make it a little easier to get out of the bowl. Shove the mixer down. And I'll stop it and drop the bowl. Take the dough hook out. Oh, that came out.
You want me to show from here or from the other side? Can you?
It's up to you.
Okay.
You want to show from the other side? I'll move that stuff.
No, I think we got it here.
All right.
And it smells wonderful already.
Should wear short sleeve shirts, but it's cold here. Still a little bit warm from the oatmeal, which I had just cooked before I started. If you cook the oatmeal right before you start, you want to add cold water. I actually added a couple ice cubes to it to cool it down, because you want the temperature of the liquid to be warm to the touch, but not so warm you can't put your hand in it. If it's too hot for you, it's too hot for the yeast, and you may kill the yeast. This is a nice temperature.
And I'll have the replay available on. It'll be up for a while on my page, and on the list of recent views. And I'll also have a link to it on YouTube on my website, conniecaps.org/periscope.
Okay, what I'm doing is just working it from all different angles, and every once in a while just fold it over so that I'm exposing the inside of the dough. And we'll get this last little bit of flour that's on the counter worked into it, and then we'll be ready to put it in for its first rise. The first rise, let it rise until it's doubled in bulk, which generally takes an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in cooler weather. And after that, I'll divide this in half and put it in loaf pans and let it rise again until it's pretty much the size I want the loaves to be. It'll rise a little bit more in the oven, but if you let it rise more in the pan before you bake it, you'll get a lighter crumb, which for a bread like this is what you want. All right, the texture it's good. It bounces back when you push on it, which is what you want. It's dry to the touch. It's not sticky. If you do a rye flour in particular, it's going to be stickier than that, and so to handle it, you'll have to have a little flour in your hands, but this is all wheat with a little bit of oat, and it's just fine. I'm going to take this now and put it into my rising bowl.
Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
This is an old Wherever aluminum wok that I bought a long time ago. And it's perfect for this. It was a mediocre wok.
You want your oil?
It's,
Right
yeah.
here.
It's great for letting the bread rise because it's covered and it keeps the moisture in, keeps the top from drying out. I pour a tablespoon or two of oil in there. I'm using peanut oil, the same oil I used in the bread. If I was making a white bread, kind of a dinner bread, I would use olive oil. But I wanted something more neutral for this because it's a little bit on the sweet side with the molasses. And neutral oil works better for that. And put it in, turn it over, and coat it with the oil that you just put in the bowl. Cover it. Check back in an hour. And that is it.
And if you guys want to come back in about an hour, we'll take a look at it and do part 2. Thank you so much for joining us. This will be on replay. I really appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll see you back for the second rising. Bye, everyone. Thanks.